Hi, everybody. We are almost ready to present our daily focus. We have four people viewers at the moment. Five. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we should start. So I am Carlotta Figini, and I am a project manager for Hi Justine from the European Digital Learning Network. And we are planning to go live on Facebook to create a community of people, parents, youth workers to prevent child sexual abuse. And today I'm here with my colleagues, Chris and Silvia from Step by Step, Croatia Association, and Stelios from Emphasis. So we are gonna present what is sexting and to basically discuss about is sexting a crime, how to prevent the risk of sexting, and what parent and youth workers can do to prevent it. And at the end, Silvia will present sextortion. What is sextortion? I'm probably going to be a little bit bored today because I'm going to show one PowerPoint presentation, but then all the live will be an interactive discussion between you and us regarding the today topic. So to interact with us, please use the chat. It's quite difficult nowadays to break the ice with the new technology and live streaming and the people listening to us. So please, let's try to do it as much as interesting as possible, basically. So I will start with a short presentation about what is sexting. And yes, can you see me? Yes. No? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I did a short presentation today about what is sexting. We have a question mark if you have any idea of what is sexting. And nowadays, we may ask ourselves, is sexting a problem? Is not sexting a problem? So today, when we talk about sexting, we talk about the act of sending, receiving, of forwarding text. As the word sex texting is suggesting, we are talking about sext and texting, basically, and what we should text in between sending, receiving, and forwarding messages. We can forward text messages about sex. We can message through sending images of picture or also videos. So everything we basically share through mobile phones, especially, or different electronic means. So the question today is sexting could sexting becoming a problem, especially for youth? Why sexting can be a problem if we talk about youth, and especially about people below the age of 18. First of all, sexting, so the interchange of photo, of text regarding to sex, it could be a problem if it's distributed without permission. So for instance, if I send to my colleague Stelios a picture of me naked because we are partners, but then he resend it to Chris without my permission, my consent, it could be a problem. And it could be a big problem also if I am below the age of 18. Indeed, sexting can be a problem if it happens between people under the age of 18 or between one adult and one person who is below the age of 18. Sexting can be considered also a problem if it's the result of an harassment, a stalking, or a bullying. Imagine, this is a big problem, for instance, in secondary schools. Peers exchanging picture of themselves naked, and then that picture is basically used to bully that person within a school context. So, which are the enable factors that nowadays let us talk a lot about sexting? Because we have the technological expansion, we have the intercoverage, and the availability of mobile devices, iPad, iPod, mobile phones. How much time do I need to share one picture online or to send it to a colleague of mine? Maybe it's just a click. How many times do we resend and we forward pictures to our colleagues? It's a matter of a few seconds, really. I will conclude my short presentation to talk about why youth could be reluctant to seek help. So why it's so difficult for another or for a person who is working with a as a youth worker or psychologist to detect it in a youth group, or a victim that a youth we work with could be a victim of it, because it could be very embarrassing knowing that the picture of myself naked is circulating and is in the hands of a perpetrator, because sometimes young people do not know that could be a victim of crime. Sometimes youth may share personal picture for attention, popularity, and affirmation between peers and within the group of peers, and also because it could be an expression of their sexuality, like flirting or experimenting their first steps towards sex. This information, especially the last one, have been taken by the Europol. The Europol, it's European Police in 2019. So, take into consideration all this information to introduce the topic of sexting today. I'm leaving the floor to my colleague Chris to understand if is it sexting a crime? Is it sexting a cybercrime? So I give the floor to him so we can start discussing about this together.
Okay, thank you, Carlotta, very much. As Carlotta already mentioned, we want this to be more of a discussion or a debate with all of us here today. I see that there's 10 people here, so you are welcome to comment any time. And my part actually is more to present to you how is sexting covered with the research, scientific research, and what are the laws or legislatures in this type of behavior or crime, as it usually are referred to. So in the last decades, the interest of the topic of sexting have accumulated a sizable and growing body of research. So there's a lot of research that are covering various aspects of sexting, such as prevalence of sexting, it's a big thing, motivation for sexting, what we can correlate sexting to, and of course attitudes towards sexting, and what is perceived outcomes of the sexting. It's not possible in this time to determine the true prevalence of sexting, because this is fairly or quite new phenomenon, and we don't have consistent technology we are using for sexting. Of course, there is a problem with inappropriate sampling frame and inaccurate interpretation that can be done in some of the researches. There's a few researches that shows that the evidence that sexting is more prevalent among adults than adolescents, as well as that both adolescents and adults are receiving a text more than they send them. So that's quite interesting point, maybe again for the discussion later. And there is no evidence that a sexting trend occur with a committed relationship among adolescents, but there's always the peer pressure and social norms that are involved in all of that, and so the peer pressure and social norms are usually the main motivators for engaging in such a behavior. And regarding legislation, that's also something that is very, very tricky nowadays, because there's no consistent version of legislation or penalties associated with the prosecution or defense of sexting as a crime. Because sexting is relatively, as I already mentioned, relatively new phenomenon. State legislatures and prosecutors have been struggling with how to punish and how to protect, let's say, young people in engaging, young people that are engaged in that kind of behavior. So there is no clear consent with anywhere in the world. So no two countries have two same legislature, practice, or laws specifically that specifically address the sexting as a crime or as a problem, in a matter of speaking. So they are usually using like some good. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not familiar with the terminology. So good law practices, let's say. And they usually are putting it in a frame of child pornography. So child pornography is something that most EU member states for sure, but also US and other countries have like laws against the child pornography, and usually that's where we stop with like legislation on that type of behavior. Cyber crimes, as Carlotta mentioned, it's a great statement. So, but on the other hand, there's a few examples where the risk that was involved in the sexting is that people are engaging in forwarding or sending the message without consent was prosecuted and prosecuted for visiting and disturbing child pornography. And they were prosecuted for that as a way as a punishment for sexting. And I will just wrap it up with the Croatian example. As you know, I coming from Croatia, so it was new to me also, and I was trying to find out what are Croatians' example or Croatians' practice in punishing unconsented sexting. So it was very interesting to me when I Googled sexting in Croatia, literally. There's a lot of sites explaining what sexting is, why is it bad, and when it's bad. And also I find the website from our Ministry of Internal Affairs or Ministry of Interior, however you say it. And they're explaining it in very detail what is sexting and how we can maybe help or see the signs. But they don't have Croatia don't have any specific law. So as many other countries, Croatia is also the country that have like child pornography law against child pornography, and in that frame, every evidence or every case of the sexting is put on. And then for the comment section, Carlotta, you can show my questions. So you can comment it while Stelios is speaking, or Silvia, or we can discuss it in the end of the this part of presentation. And I wanted to know if there's a sexting relating laws in your country. And of course, maybe more interesting in what do you think that would be appropriate way to punish people who are engaging in unconsented sexting? Yeah, that's it from me. I'm giving the floor or word to Stelios.
Thank you, Christopher. Before proceed with my part, I would like to comment something on the legislative and research gaps that you mentioned. Sometimes it's a tricky situation. Sometimes the same person in some countries can be the perpetrator and the victim, because sharing pictures of yourself and you're under 18 it's like this. It counts that distribute sexual conduct. So it's like you are distributing pornography as well, even if it's for your own self.
This is very good point, because that's why the researchers cannot be 100% sure that every variable can be included, because there's a lot of new ways to seeing, and it's not that researched yet what are the aspects of sexting and how to prevent it. Thank you.
That's right. So together we will see a few tips on how parents can prevent the risk related to sexting. Before proceed with the tips, I would like to say that sexting is not something alien to us. It's a new phenomenon, but it's not something that it never happened before. And let me explain myself. What I mean is sexual experimentation. It was always there, but it was manifesting in different ways. As Carlota mentioned, and Christoph, with the expansion of technology, this went online. So it's like something that happened before, but manifests itself in a new way now in the digital era. So starting with the tips, my first tips to parents and probably youth workers is to have an open and honest conversation with your children. Because if you abstain from educating your own children about what is right, what is wrong, and sexual education related, they will educate themselves from somewhere else. Usually, this is coming from media or movies or different sources that they will follow today. So this is not always accurate, especially in the culture we live in, that the branding sexualize the culture. So some information might not be accurate and they might get the wrong message. So it's always good to be the one that's going to provide them with the right resources and education. Also equally important is to not assume that your child will never do that. Because I was watching a video the other day, a child of a cop working it was a policeman working in the sexual prevention, the juvenile department, and it happened to his daughter. So even it happened to the experts. So it's really important to understand the reasons that is happening. Some of them mentioned by Carlota, the peer pressure, everybody's doing it, so it's normalized. Some children might think, children, teen as well, might think that this way is to show someone that I'm sexy, or it's a way to ask for someone attention. So it's important to understand those reasons and don't turn a blind eye and hypothesize that this is not happening to us. Equally important is to explain to your children the legislations and the criminal consequences that it might have, that Christoph explained. Because, as I said, there's a thin line between being a perpetrator and a victim. So your children need to be aware of what the consequences of their action will be. Really important also is to be aware about the digital footprint. What digital footprint is, how this affects their identity, and how they can manage their digital identity. Different studies show that if you say to your children that what you post online stays online and it can't change it, it's working to prevent them and be more critical with their choices. So it's a good start even for with young children to talk about digital identity and digital citizenship. The next point is it's a bit there is no right and wrong with this point. Some people say that consider providing examples of real life scenarios. Some people say it works, some people say it's not. Personally, I will say that if you can visualize something and you can see the consequences that is real, it's happening, you will be more careful with it. So if you consider showing your kids or teens videos of different campaigns or different videos of example of survivors that they talk and say their stories, it might be a good way to ring a bell and make them all alert.
I have a question for you, Stelios. So you're suggesting also to youth worker and parents to showing like testimonials, so people that have passed through the process, but also like example of real text, of real practices that are happening to see it together.
What I mean, let's say in the news, you can hear of stories of usually celebrities and stuff that they were texting or sharing images with their partners, and then they break up, and their images leaked on the internet. So that's a good example to initiate a conversation with your child. When you hear that in the news, it might be a good way to start a conversation with them.
Okay, thank you.
I would agree completely with you, Stelios, because those everyday situations, especially if they involve some celebrity and not someone real, should encourage both children and parents to speak up openly. It is often a problem, and I'm so glad you addressed that, because there is like a taboo, and often parents and children are not speaking openly about it. But if there will start to talk because of some celebrity or some case they heard about or read about, that can definitely improve their communication and make it more open. So yes, I would completely agree.
Thank you for adding this, Sylvia.
We have one question from Justine. I read it now, and then we see if to answer now or at the end. We have for young children, which is a good age, being a teenager, beginning of teenager. I think about talking about sexting, which is a good age to start talking with the people about this. As a parent, as a youth worker, what do you think?
Yeah. There is no clear guidelines here. I will say this education should start from home and from school as well, from sexual education. I will say 10 years old, you can start initiating some discussions, but yeah, not show them testimonials, let's say, to a 10-year-old. It should be age appropriate as well. So for 10 years old, you can say to the child that we don't share pictures without clothes with anyone. And then with older child, you might consider providing examples, but with younger child, yeah, it might be too much to show them something really heavy that might traumatize them.
Yes,
Okay.
and I would add that from earlier age, you can definitely send a message that there is no that there are no theme that you cannot speak about. So open communication about all the topics, including sexuality, really can start from earlier age than 10. And if we know that most of 10-year-old children today use smartphone, then some basic education we should provide them before using their smartphones, should include the information that is safe to share with other people and which one is not. So.
Okay. Thank you. We also have a comment from Damiana, which I think we could also take into consideration by the end, which is related to revenge porn. And by the fact that I'm from Italy, as Damiana is, even if she's working in Spain, Damiana is typing us comments, and she worked with us on the Stop project. And in Italy, they basically introduced last year in 2019, after long years of fight, a law, which is a law for revenge porn, which is finally identifying that sharing content through sexting also without the consent of a person is a crime. And also, if this is made by an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend, it's even more penalized by the law. as it's considered as a sort of, how do you say, an increase in the penalties because you did it for revenge. So thanks, Damiana, to share this with us. And Stelios, what parents, youth work, and so can do if their children get involved in sexting?
Sorry, before going to that point, I would like to share 2 more tips quickly.
Sorry.
The last 2 is to ensure that you speak to your child and they know who they can talk to if something happens. So it needs to be a person of trust. So it's really important to know where to head when they have a problem. And also to, on the other hand, teach your children that the backstab with them. So even if they receive an image or a picture of someone else in a relationship or something, they need to know that if they don't share that photo, that stops with them, and it's better to be part of the solution than the problem. So it's really important to be aware of that too. Lastly, before giving the floor to Sylvia, I would like to share with parents a few tips on what's happening if they find out that their children is they are involved in such an incident. The first step is to take a breath and try to calm yourself down. It will be a stressful situation for both of you. So it's really important to be calm and not judgmental to your child. It's vital to analyze the facts and find out how this happened and analyze the situation. If that was a result of peer pressure, it was blackmailing or it's really important to find out what happened there. Secondly, it's also important to consider involving the parent and other teens. If it's something involved other youth as well. I can hear my voice back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see. These are the microphones.
Yes, we can hear.
Is it okay now? No. So I will try to the mute.
Yeah.
Testing.
Yes. Okay.
Now
Better.
Okay. So another tip is to contact the Internet Watch Foundation. That's a foundation based in the UK, and they can remove anything about you that you relation to the Internet. So even not from the UK, you can contact them and they have it from online. Finally, it's really important to contact if your child is a counselor or other professional to consider seek help from a psychologist experiencing depression or anxiety. That's all for me. And I will be
Okay. Thank you very much, Stelios. You can hear my echo as well.
Yes.
Okay. Sylvia, I give you the floor. Try to use the microphone.
Okay. Should I start to mute first and to reset the microphone? Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we can move on to one topic which is very much connected to the topic of sexting, and it is a sextortion. So sextortion usually includes blackmail with the intent of extorting some sexually explicit images, messages, money, or real sexual favors from another person we usually met online. It can be based on a personal information we shared with someone we met online, but it can also include taking some our personal information from before by hacking our profiles. So actually it is a blackmail, and most sextortionists tend to repeat the offense. So when we see results of some service, we can see that in some cases, in some real prosecuted cases, there were sextortionists that has from 10 to 100 victims at the same time. 71% of all victims of sextortion are children younger than 18 years old. So I think we really have to be concerned about this new challenge which is coming with the digital age and related to sexting. To understand better the concept of sextortion, let's see, why do people sextort? First of all, sextortion is related to fulfilling their own sexual desires. It is also connected to financial gain, to revenge. And I'm really glad you mentioned it. And Damiana mentioned this revenge porn. I will also mention later. And also another reason of why do people sextort is a humiliation. So let's start with the fulfilling sexual desires, which is in most cases the first reason why do people sextort. So by sending explicit images, by asking, blackmailing and asking for some more explicit images, more explicit videos, they actually fulfill their sexual desires. And as I said, usually they have more than one victim. Then we're coming to financial gain, because those kind of blackmails are usually connected to blackmailing money or some other monetary goods based on having some compromising pictures or any other content. And then we're coming to revenge. Usually, as you said, Carlotta, when some relationship breaks down, then some of partners can use some pictures that were shared during the relationship to blackmail the other partner after the breakup, and this is known as a revenge porn. And I was really glad when I heard that in Italy actually there is a law about it. I'm not sure what is the situation in Croatia. Christian, did you see something about it? Well, no.
No, as I already mentioned, so in Croatia, it's purely child pornography as a frame. And with that principles, they are also using it for the young people or even adults. So every pornography kind of, and what is connected to pornography, it's usually done in that frame. So that's everything Croatia have for now.
Okay, thank you. And the last reason, well, actually, this is not only but the four main reasons. Also, reason is humiliation. Some people do sextort because they want to humiliate other person. Unfortunately, there are people who are seeing, by seeing some people humiliated or terrified or being humiliated, have some own pleasure. So they use some sexually explicit images to threat other people and to threat them that they will send it to their family, friends, schoolmates, working place, and so on to make the victims anxious. Okay, so this is why do people sextort? Of course, we are open to receive any question or comment also about this part, and I would like to continue maybe with part how to avoid being sextorted.
Mm-hmm.
So, first of all, try not to be too generous with your trust. When you meet someone online, when you have some new online friend, try not to trust too easily. People online often can provide some information which are not the truth. And if someone asks you or pressures you to send some information or some sexually explicit images, then remember that if you send it only once, it stays forever. Eustelius mentioned the digital footprint. It is very important. It is very important topic. So any potential blackmailer can get those images, those information, and use it against you. And there is one rule you like to say. If you think you would feel comfortable if image you would send online would be exposed in your living room, your classroom, or your office, then you send it. If you wouldn't feel comfortable to have it somewhere on the wall, real wall, not in cyberspace, then don't send it. It is the easiest way. We can ensure our own safety. Of course, another tip would be to check your privacy settings. The less information you share, the less is the chances to be blackmailed are smaller. So try not to share many personal information. And of course, another thing, be mindful of your friend list. It is very easy today to meet someone online and to accept someone to be our friend online. But at that moment, when he becomes our friend online, then he can see all information we have shared with our friends before, and to have access to all those information, photos, maybe information about us, about our family, and so on, so they can easily use it against us. It is very important to be aware that by letting someone into our virtual space, we are actually sharing all the information, including those they can use against us.
Yeah, so let's imagine like you're suggesting to consider the digital world or like our Facebook page, Instagram, as like a real or face-to-face situation. So there is no distinction. We usually do a distinction between what is online, what is offline. But like, as you say, now do we have to post a picture of ourselves naked in our classroom? Not to consider digital as something completely detached from the real world.
Yes, it is very important because a lot of people usually don't see that side of picture. Digital world is very similar to real world. So ask yourself if you would share some personal information or some images with a stranger you met in a restaurant at the moment. Probably you wouldn't. So it is at the same level, it is important not to share it with someone you met online, and to be aware that maybe you won't let complete stranger into your home, but if you are letting them into your site, into your virtual space, they have access to all the things that are yours and personal. So it is quite important to work on the awareness of both youth, but also parents and the youth workers.
Thank you. We have a question from Amaya. Are schools at European level taking measure like workshops, meeting with parents to avoid sextortion?
Well, I can try, but I'm not sure that I can answer that question. I know that the schools in Croatia, some of them are providing some prevention of sexual assault, which may include sextortion, but I'm really not sure that on the EU level we really have measures to avoid sextortion. As a digital, as the challenges of are occurring with the development of digital environment, I think that we are like a step behind, and maybe we still didn't ensure enough trainings or enough material to actually work on the prevention of sextortion. So maybe this is our task for the future.
Yes, if I can bring my personal remembering of also my school when I was younger. Now I'm 30, so let's take into consideration like 15 years ago. I still remember it was a workshop not specifically related to sextortion, but it was related especially to sexual education and talking about relationship and affectivity. And it was so important for us to have an expert coming talking about sex and the risk related to sex and unhealthy relationship, that still today I actually do remember some tips that were shared. But as far as I know, at least the situation in my country, it's up to the school or it's up to the specific teacher to introduce maybe some talks, some information regarding sextortion as a risk of sexual abuse or any kind of sexual education. So at least is my experience, there is no sort of top-down approach from the European Union to the national level, but it's up to the class, it's up to the youth worker, it's up to the person that probably got in touch with a situation that start to investigate about sexual abuse prevention. Also, we did a focus group for sexual abuse prevention, and we find out that some youth clubs starting to talk about this because they find out by chance how much sexting and revenge porn was a common practice in secondary school students. But before that, they thought that was impossible that their students were exchanging video porno video or images between themselves. So I think it's also a step-by-step process, or at least this is my experience on that.
Similar in Cyprus the situation is similar with Croatia and Italy as well, because there are some, they touch the topic in the sexual education course, but they don't touch the topic explicitly explicitly for sextortion, but some aspects of it. Let's say, make sure you provide your consent. And let's say for the digital footprint, they might know some aspects during the computer classes, what they need to share online and how they keep themselves safe. But even that is still underdeveloped. So probably here we identify a gap that we can fill with our project and different programs like similar to the ones we provide now. So.
Okay. So, do we have other questions from the ground? Do you want to keep the chance to have with us psychologists and expert to ask questions about sexting, sextortion, revenge porn for today? or you want to share with us best practice?
While we're waiting for the comments, I would just like to point out that there's a few countries such as UK and I think Estonia or something like that, that the persons involved or like accused of sexting, prosecuted for sexting, are actually entering the National Sex Offender Register. So yeah, that's the kind of practices that we should all think if it's a good way of prosecuting this kind of behavior, because it's we can all agree probably that it's something problematic and a crime relating to sex. And of course, we are now talking about young people, children even. So yeah, there's a few examples where the people who are involved in that and accused about it entering and as a sex offender. So it's interesting point of how to prevent maybe this kind of a behavior if you have this level of punishment. And of course, sharing and producing the problematic porno material is probably in all of our countries like something that is not quite legal, let's say, like that.
Christian saying that I would like to say that most of the times, or sometimes, the perpetrator, let's say, that will share this picture, it might be another children. So identify them as sex offenders and put them in that list will stigmatize them for the rest of their lives. So sometimes it can be related to a child's mistake. They might think that this is fun, I'm gonna share it with my mates, and then share that picture, and that's how they're distributing pornographic material. And I think it's quite unfair to stigmatize them for the rest of their life because of that mistake, because both of them might be children. But I will bet, that's my personal opinion, I will bet to educate them and teach them how they need to treat others with respect and take their precautions and show respect to other people and their privacy as well, instead of punishing them. But yeah, that's a different example. Different legislation.
Yes, I can agree. So I would just answer on the Stelios. Yes, I completely agree with you, because that was like point of everything that we all said. It's the sexting is not yet well defined, and where is like the line is where it's really problematic and a crime, and where is it like something to be connected to flirting or like some sort of relationship kind of stuff. Okay, sorry, Sylvia, I saw that you were waving, so yeah.
Yes. I don't know what I wanted to add at that point, but I definitely would like to. Yes, I remembered now. I would like to go with this part: what to do if you're being sextorted, and it is related to these crime offenses you mentioned before. So, if it happens, it can be extremely scary if someone sextort you. If someone blackmails you that they will send or publish your pictures, your sexually explicit, compromising pictures, videos, to all the people, to your friends, to your family, to your classroom mates, it really can be scary. First of all, you have to find someone to tell about it. Some person of trust, and it would be great if it is adult person who can actually make some steps to help you and to understand you, to help you to deal with this situation, or to contact the services. The other important thing is don't crack under the pressure. if someone is blackmailing you and asking you to send more and more images, it won't stop if you send it. Usually, after you send it, they will ask for more. So don't crack under the pressure. Tell someone, and the other thing is contact the police, because sexting and sextortion maybe is not recognized by the law, but blackmail is. So blackmail is a criminal offense in most of the countries. So if it doesn't matter if the blackmail includes sexually explicit content. So it is definitely something you can ask the police to proceed with the case. Basically, everything is in those 3 steps. Communication is a key. So definitely, if you are in a problem or facing some difficulties or some sextortion, go to your youth worker, to your teacher, to your parents. Often it is very hard with the parents, or to your friend who will help you to go through it.
Thank you. I have one cases that he came up during our research, and it was the case of sextortion. So, like exchanging of material related to sex. Was a lady with a group. Then the youth workers find out what was happening, and they talk with the lady, and she said that it was normal, that basically in the groups, like her images was shared by different people. In such a case, what would you do as a youth worker or as a psychologist? What do you suggest in this case to do? Maybe I explain myself wrong.
Yeah, can you repeat the question, Carlotta? Sorry.
No, yes, sorry. It was a case that happened that it was related to sexting. So there was in a youth club a girl that shared with the boyfriend the image of herself as naked, let's say. Then they find out that not only the boyfriend, but also all the group of, let's say, male was sharing that image. And then they find out when they were talking with the girl about that, that was, let's say, normal for her, that this practice was happening. But at that point, the youth worker were shocked. So her image of herself naked was like being commented by a group of people, and for her was normal. And this was a situation that they didn't know how to face. So what would you suggest to them to face this situation, to make them reflect on this kind of activities? Maybe this time I explain myself better.
This actually comes back to my point earlier on I made with the sexualized culture and how they present the sexting as something normal without any risks. So in the example you provided clearly shows that case. And how you can deal with it, it starts early on with education. Actually, it can prevent those things. But yeah, the key I think is to not to show that is wrong, but to show some respect to yourself and distinguish between what is privacy and what needs to be shared with others. But that needs to start from early on, from schools, from family, and from key guardians. Let's say.
Yeah, and just add up to that, as a youth worker, you are somebody who is closely on the age with the person you're working with. So it's very important to from that position as a peer you can maybe stress out that this kind of behavior is not appropriate and it's not something that is normal in our age, in our society. So you cannot find all the context that that picture went. So you can tell them, no, it's wrong, you have to erase it forever, because once you send it out on any application, it's forever somewhere there. So it's very important to talk about the like person X that started send that picture, to know what does that mean. Even though you are sending it just to your partner, it's if it's consent, that's your private thing, but you have to be aware what does that mean that you send it via applications or via internet. So it's important to I talking to youth workers that you are their peer, and usually you are the one that they trust. As Silvia mentioned, the parents are not usually the first person that you come up with such a, let's say, embarrassing thing that happened to you, if happened that to you, because you are embarrassed firstly, for sure. So yeah, it's important to present it like something that is not okay and it's not common and normal in our surroundings.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. I hope these help. We got 2 comments from the ground. One is from related to it's a question. Do you have any additional advice for teachers and other school staff on what can they do to support a pupil they know that has been involved into sextortion? So this is one question. And second one is, I'm thinking about meeting a victim to share his story, to understand a other position. So these are, one is a question, and second one, it's a way maybe to empathically share a situation. What do you think about this?
Well, I can say an answer to Sarah's question. What can teachers and other school staff do to support a pupil involved in sextortion? One of the first thing that is important to know about the sextortion is that the most of the victims stay silent. So if they come to teacher or to any other professional asking for help, it is quite important to give them support. One of the important things is not to avoid any shaming, because they at that moment feel ashamed enough and humiliated enough because the whole process that is behind them, and because they know that they have faced with sextortionist and all the system. So it is important to give support to them, not to shame them, and to give a very clear advices what to do and what not to do, not to send any other additional images or videos, not to come into the debate with the sextortionist, not to go into the revenge or trying to find something about that person and then share it. It is important to be support and maybe to lead them within the process they have to go while contacting the services, institutions, police, and so on.
I would like to add something to Sylvia's point as well. I totally agree with Sylvia how she approached the topic, but I would like to add that in case while you are talking to the child, in case you find out that another adult is involved, because that's another possibility, it's really important to support the child to contact the police, because that's a serious crime and the police needs to be involved, especially when an adult is involved in the situation. If it's between children, you might want to find a way to inquire the other children as well what happened, and definitely you might need support from a professional as well, a psychologist, because of the anxiety, the distress that the child will be through.
Thank you, Stelios and Silvia. And I'm not sure if I understood the last comment, and is related about thinking about meeting a victim to share his story and to understand another position. So as far as I understood, taking a real example of meeting a victim, understand the story to basically let the young people understand the consequences of a crime like sextortion. Would you recommend it or not?
Yeah, you go, Christian, I'll go there second.
Yeah, my take on the story sharing on this kind of behavior or situations. Yeah, it's usually very how to say it. Sorry, I just blocked a little bit. It's very motivating for somebody to if you hear a story for somebody that went through. But this kind of situation are usually very hard for people, and it's very hard to find somebody who will talk about that over and over again. It will be great to have like somebody who were a victim and who is willing to share it over and over, so you have it like direct example. And it's of course great idea if we can say great in that situation, but I think it's very hard to find somebody who will actually be as open to talk about it in front of a bigger crowd. But yeah, if you find it, try to keep that kind of.
I was thinking that I was concerned while thinking about it because it could lead to some secondary victimization. So maybe it would be better to share the story anonymously, to share the story without some details, maybe in a written way. To give the information, but not to go through it many times, because it can be very very harmful for the victim.
So thank you very much. It's been very interesting, or at least for me, discussing about this topic. I think as a group, we do this to raise the awareness about the practices of sexual abuse, because we think that information, sharing best practice, sharing idea, fears, and case study could be a starting point to, in a way, do sexual abuse prevention. So I think we would like to thank you all, but most importantly, we would like this community to be a live community and a space for parents, youth workers, and people to discuss about this topic. So we are thinking about do one meeting a month, every fourth Friday of the month at 4 p.m. meeting us for, not to remember for us and not to remember for you, and to discuss about topics related to sexual abuse prevention. Silvia has a topic for next online Facebook Live, and probably she can introduce it to you now, but we would like, if you have any kind of willingness to talk about any specific topic, to drop us a message on Facebook so that we can discuss it all together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlota. Yes, we were thinking, oh my God, I can hear myself like an echo. We were thinking for the next topic to talk about the impact of the porno games, which are very often very violent and which can give some bad picture to the youth. So to talk about what is the impact, what we can do, and how we can approach this problem. Of course, if you have any other suggestions of other topics, we are open to receive it. And I can say for myself that I'm really looking forward to the next meetings, live meetings.
Thank you. So see you the 26th of May. No, May, it's already done. The 26th of June. Maybe it could be a good day to meet again. And stay tuned on our Facebook page so that you can get information and confirmation about our next live Facebook event. So thank you and happy weekend. Safe weekend.
Bye.
Bye bye.